So Mason and I, we went through about 800 or 900 photos and several hours of video, and we tried to strategically plan what was the best we can cover in 20 minutes of, 8 amazing days with this community. So we're going to break it apart and kind of go between each other, but we have to stand here so you can hear us and Dennis can get the recording. So I would like to introduce the team. I've already introduced John and Ann, but the photo that you see here is 10 of us. I'm going to go individually, but this is us at the airport getting ready to embark from SFO on our amazing journey. So this is John Bossman Curry. John was our team leader, and if you didn't remember, John was also on the team with Patty and Lisa last time. So John was a big part of it. And the animal Morris, Ann's actually here as well. These nicknames were adopted very willingly throughout the trip based on behaviors and things that were going on. James Franceschi, James Osha, he's a firefighter in Dixon, and as you can imagine, there's no rules or conditions on how you work there. So throughout the entire trip, James was constantly reminding us of how we were going to fall and die and be more careful. Cody Gun Show Franceschi, he's flexing his muscles for the kids, showing off with the goats. And then this is Jennifer Cornrow York and Heather Chickenhead McRae. I'll have to tell you more about their nicknames later, but Heather's from Davis and Jan is from Diamond Springs, right? Valley Springs. John the Hammer Gabby, that's John after we got into doing some good demolition. He was the sledgehammer master. Maggie the Riveter Ramirez. Maggie just graduated from high school the week before we left, and so she's from Dixon. She was pretty excited to be there. Mason Bieber Matthews. Mason became somewhat of a celebrity while we were there. There are about 115-year-old Haitian girls that are in love with just Mason. Paul Bubbles Slay. Well, that's another one we'll talk about a little bit later, or Mason might elaborate, but Bubbles became my nickname through the week. And here we are. Do I need to pause it? Or will it stop?
It's okay.
So now Mason's going to talk about Port-au-Prince.
All right. So this picture is from our flight, just pulling in over Port-au-Prince. We flew a red-eye flight, so we got in really early that morning. Let's see. There we go. There's another view of the city. As you can see, there's a lot of pollution and stuff above it, but at the same time, it's like one of the most gorgeous islands I've ever seen in the world. It's really amazing there. So when we arrived to Haiti, it was a really interesting experience. We arrive in the airport, and then we get sent on this bus to go to the terminal. But when we're on the bus, it was very quiet. Like, I didn't want to have my camera out or anything. And it's this really weird thing. And as we pull up, the doors open up from the bus, as it's all like really weird and officially. And there's like a band there playing music outside and stuff, greeting us. So it was this really surreal moment. So that last picture was us in the van that we got picked up in, and we got to drive around Port-au-Prince to go to the Methodist guest house. That picture is a shot of some of the houses out there. As you can see, most of them are built with concrete, and a lot of them have temporary tarps and stuff attached to them for their living structures. So there's a shot from downtown in Port-au-Prince. There's a lot of bicycles and the roads out there. There's roads, but there isn't really road laws per se. You'll be driving downtown, and a Mack truck will pass you, and there'll be like 3 other Mack trucks coming at you. It was really crazy. There's some burning trash. John was saying on their last trip there was a lot more burning trash and rubble throughout the city, and so although that was there's significantly less. So that was really good to see and hear that there is improvements being made down there. But like all other big cities, Port-au-Prince has its own problems and stuff attributed to it. There's a plantain truck at a gas station. You don't really see those back home, I guess. We ate plantains a lot out there. They fry them up almost like French fries, and if anyone's had deep fried plantains before, they're really, really good. So we ate a lot of those out there. As you can see, there's a bunch of people on that truck, and out in Haiti, they have these trucks called tap-taps where you'll fit up to 12 people in one truck that'll have about 350,000 miles on it, and it's like their taxis out there. It's called a tap-tap because you hit the side of it when you want to get off the thing. This picture was really powerful to me. The little kid standing on the corner there. We were driving down through Port-au-Prince, and I saw him standing on the corner, but he didn't have any mom or dad around him anywhere. There was no one else on the block, and this little kid was just standing there. And there's just another thing you wouldn't really see back home. So I waved at him, and he waved back at me, and that's all I know about him. So that was a really powerful moment. There's another view from higher up in the mountains around there. And that picture right there is in Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince. That's their government building. That would be the equivalent to our White House being in ruins. It was destroyed during the earthquake, and it still hasn't been rebuilt yet. So that was really crazy to see. And down there was a lot of vendors and stuff too. There's a tent city. After the earthquake, over 1.5 million people were displaced, and it's been 2 years, and there's still about 400,000 people living in these temporary tent cities. A lot of the tarps have like USAID and stuff on it, and Red Cross and I don't know how to pronounce it. Samaritan International. There's another view of temporary living facilities out there, and those were all over the country in the hillsides and stuff. A lot of people tried to escape to the mountains and stuff after the earthquake because they wanted to get out of the city. And so after staying our first night at the Methodist Guest House in Port-au-Prince, we left to Lévesque, and we went on their highway. It was the main highway in Haiti, but they're still working on it out there. And their highway, a lot of the parts of the highway, it's still gravel, so we had to drive along a highway of gravel, which was really interesting. There's a UN vehicle. You'd see one of those about every 3 minutes if you were driving around downtown. They were everywhere. The government of Haiti pretty much is the United Nations right now, so that was really interesting seeing all the UN soldiers had patches from the different countries they were at. So I saw Japanese soldiers, I saw Peruvian soldiers, so that was really interesting. That's one of the vans that our luggage was loaded on when we were leaving to Lévesque, and inside that van was all of our food and stuff for the week. And there's a shot of the highway with just the gravel that we were talking about. But they've come a long way on building the highway. Most of it didn't exist before the earthquake, and so since the earthquake, a lot of the money has come into the country. So even though it was so devastating, it's brought a lot of international money and awareness to Haiti. So it's been beneficial in that regard as they're trying to repair. And so Paul's going to take it over from here.
Does this thing pause? Mason's got this thing on a time slide thing because I'll sit up here and talk and it'll be like 1 o'clock and we'll be like, what the heck, the service was over an hour ago. So I'm going to try to keep up with the slides going forward if I didn't mess it up here, Mason. Okay, so this is a photo of kind of a Google map of Lévesque. We were about 38 miles north of Port-au-Prince, but it took us about 2 hours to get there based on the road conditions and the way Mason, is it the yellow dot, Mason? Is that?
The one on the bottom in the south, that's
the guest house, and the top yellow dot is where we were. So is it going to just go now? Did I mess it up?
And that's a closer shot of that.
Okay, so then here's a close. Okay, so it's going. So there's a main highway that runs north and south, and the church itself was located right on the highway. So as the driveway came to the main street, there's vehicles passing by at 100 miles an hour. As Mason said, the rules of the road there is the bigger the vehicle, the more the right-of-way. So if you're a pedestrian, you're on the bottom of the food chain, and it comes to the roadway right-of-way, and it was tough. But we did a neighborhood walk. That was a story in and of itself. And for the most part, we didn't leave the enclosure, and you're going to see more photos of where the church and the school was, for safety reasons and just being out of our element. But at one point, we did decide to do a community walk, and that took us down this dirt road, and it took us to multiple villages, and I think Mason's going to share that a little bit, where there were these huge tent cities and just buildings that were made of 2x4s and then wrapped with like a Samaritan's Purse tarp and other things. But the community was, I think word got out after the first day that we were there, and everywhere we went, kids came up and held our hands and walked with us and wanted us to hold them, and they were fighting over who would get which hand, and the enjoyment of us being there and the fact that they got to walk with us. Here's an example of one of this isn't, I guess you could say it's a tent city, but really I think it's a long-term community. The walls are done in plastic and there are solid roofs, and it appeared to be framed-in homes, but this was a big community of probably, a couple hundred of them, John, probably in this one little section that the Samaritan's Purse had probably come in and built, and this will probably be the long-term homes for them in Levac. As we continued through, it reminded me of being kind of this part. We left some tropical area and we were out like in a desert. And so it was, maybe like being in Arizona. And their animals there are all for a purpose. They don't have pets. For those of you that are animal lovers, it would be shocking to you. Dogs aren't the loved pets that we cuddle and hold. They're skinny, they compete for the food, and they're mistreated. And in most cases, when dogs are coming around, they're having rocks thrown at them, or they're being told to beat it or get. So during our neighborhood walk, here's some more of the housing. Now these were a little bit more fixed, if I can see that right. So these were more of kind of a wooden lean-to with metal roofings, and then I haven't seen these slides yet. So there are some also that were actually nice cinder block constructed housing. So, but through the neighborhood, this is the outskirts. It's off of the main road, but there's so many people that live just around the perimeter of the community. Now, when we walked in, here's Ann holding one of the kids. I mean, keep in mind, these aren't like coming into church and having all the kids dressed nice and very boogery, very dirty. I mean, we went through lots of Purell, lots of hand sanitizer. The heebie-jeebies, I guess, is the best way to get it. But the love was there, and even though you could tell some of them were not well and some of them were malnourished, they still came up. And this is kind of an outbuilding in the middle of one of the little communities where it kind of reminded me of like a rec room. It was just a roofed area, big open cement seating, and on the outside there you can see all the blocks. It's like a little homemade amphitheater. And there was a stage in the background, if you can see the stage kind of behind Mason's left ear. And so it looked like that's a place where they can get together and do things out within the community of that neighborhood there. But they were just hanging out. So this is this your part, Nathan, or am I doing this too? Okay, so construction. We arrived day one. Here's the church. Our job or our assignment was to come demo the church. So as we pull into the driveway, so if you look far out, that's the street coming in. That little greenhouse on the left was somebody's home. And this is the Levac Methodist Church, United Methodist Church. There's actually a brick sitting up here on the shelf. You're going to see it belongs to the front of the church. Both Dixon and us brought home a complete brick from the church. So the first day we kind of did some basic work and we were pulling the rafters down. Day two we started getting into tearing the ceiling out, and we started exposing the roof and getting the roof off. As you can see, the conditions and the tools that we had were limited, climbing all over, not following very many safety rules, to say the least. That's where James was going crazy trying to keep us safe. But as you see throughout day two, you can see the roof coming off and the church coming apart. By day three, we were starting to break down some of the structure. That was the altar inside. We're getting the majority. We've got all the roof off now, and we're starting to get the main trusses of the roof off. The ladders, we had a couple broken down scaffolding ladders and then some wooden ladders that we made out of the scrap wood. So we were able, at times we were standing on desks and hoisting each other up. And this is me and one of the local workers, Jonas. While we're watching through the phasing, and you can kind of just see day by day the progress of the work that we were doing. We had about 6 or 8 different laborers that were working with us. The rate in Haiti, the average labor rate is about $5 a day. And we paid $10 a day, but out of that $10, they only saw $8 because $2 was pooled for their lunch and their water, because they made them eat lunch and they made sure they had water. Right, John? Is that how it worked out? So they were making about $3 more a day than they normally would. And these guys worked all day, as hard as any other person, and they felt blessed to be making $8 a day. By day 4, we had the roof off and we're pounding walls out. We had sledgehammers. We actually brought a couple sledgehammers. We broke one. We had to go into town. That was an adventure in itself, trying to find a little shop. We went through 6 or 8 different places to find sledgehammers. We didn't have socket wrenches, so we were using crescent wrenches, and we bought a thing of WD-40 to loosen it up. Here's on day 5, a group of us in front of the building, because we knew that this was going to be the last day that there was a wall standing to take a picture in front of. The progress was going fast. We had set some personal goals, and then we said, okay, can we flatten this place by the time we leave? We were on site for 8 days. We worked for 7 of those days. The first day we showed up, we worked for a half a day. Saturdays was only a half work day. Sundays an off day, and then we worked Monday through Thursday from 8 a.m. until about 3 or 4 p.m. So day 6, you'll notice the walls are down. Now we're to the point where we're moving debris and getting it out of the way. For the engineer had come out and said, you can't have any debris inside this area where we're going to dig the footings for the new church. But there you go. There's the before and the after of what we were able to accomplish on our construction phase for 7 days of work. So what you see there on the picture to the right, they're going to be digging a foundation just a few feet out from where the existing foundation is. They're going to be coming about 6 or 8 feet back towards us and about 6 feet forward of where the foundation is. And they're going to, over the next year to 18 months, they'll be constructing an entirely new church for that community that's going to be really built up, and it's going to be awesome. So we are excited that, and we've talked about it as a team, to try to be there for the dedication of the church when they actually open it up. We were the first team there. They had not had a mission team before, and so we were very blessed and very lucky to have been the first ones to experience them, and we were the first ones of Americans that they got to experience as well, which was a big part of the blessing you're going to hear us talk about as we go. So Mason's going to talk about the next part.
Okay, so Paul pretty much covered all the construction stuff. I was involved in the construction stuff as well, but I felt like my job started once the construction work ended, because that's when I'd start interacting with the kids and stuff like that. And on the very first day, after work, I started playing soccer with some of the kids out front like that. And then I had Kaz with me, the interpreter, so they told me a couple things, I told them a couple things. And then when Kaz left, we were just playing soccer with each other. And we didn't speak either of each other's languages, but we were able to communicate so well. There's some of the kids in the church on the first day when we first met them. We gave them duct tape with their names on it, so it was little makeshift name tags and stuff. There's me hanging out with some of them right there on the first day. And eventually I got to the point where we were able to, even if we only knew basic words with each other, we were able to have conversations with each other and stuff like that. I would just go off and hang out with them for an hour without any interpreters and get along just fine. One day there was a chalkboard out, and they were doing some homework, and then so I was just watching them, and then I wrote an English word up on the board, and I taught them how to say it, and then they wanted more, and like a bunch of kids came up, so I kind of had this little makeshift English lesson with them. And then like some of the teachers came out and saw, and they were smiling and stuff. And then they switched it up, and then they started teaching me Creole on the board up there. They taught me their alphabet and stuff like that. And it was really funny. The words I had a really hard time pronouncing, and the words they had a really hard time pronouncing and stuff. But the one word we both agreed with was dog. It's pronounced exactly the same way, no matter where you're from. So that was easy. There's Tijan, one of the kids. I don't even know where he got those glasses, but he wanted me to take a picture of him with those. I had my camera with me, and they were fascinated by it. I guess a lot of them probably haven't even seen a camera, let alone like a really nice digital camera before. So I would take pictures of them and immediately turn around and show them, and a big group would come up to see it. And then they'd all want pictures with their friends and stuff like that and their family. And there's Bubbles right there. Paul got the nickname Bubbles because on the first day we were there, he had this little bubble gun, and he started shooting it off the balcony of the church. It was the school. It was a 2-story school, and he would just yell Bubbles, and kids would go up and go crazy. No matter what culture you're from, all kids love Bubbles. It's the universal language, I guess. And so he got the nickname Bubbles, and it would be either like 8 in the morning or 11 o'clock at night. If you were to yell Bubbles off the balcony, you'd hear like little pockets of kids off in the distance saying Bubbles, Bubbles, Bubbles. So that's how he got his nickname. There's me and Ann hanging out with some of the kids right there. All the kids they're really awesome. One of the interesting things, though, like when we play sports, or even if we weren't playing sports, if we were just walking around, is a lot of them, the first English thing they knew how to say was "Give me $1, give me water, give me stuff like that." And if you know where the kids come from, if you see their living conditions, you don't blame them for wanting $1, for wanting water and stuff like that. One of the hardest things on the trip would be when kids would ask me for water, and I'd have clean water. But if I gave it to that kid, then I'd also have to give it to this kid and their parent and their uncle and all the people around them. And so a lot of times I couldn't do it. And that was probably the hardest thing for me, was not being able to give someone clean water, such a basic thing we have out here that we get for free at restaurants. So 2 of the days, a group of us during the workday, we went and hung out with the kids, and we brought the coloring books and stuff there. And they loved the coloring books. At first, they were really timid and just held the colored pencil in their hand and didn't really know what to do. And so I took the pencil and kind of scribbled on the page for them. And then so they started doing that. And then I had 2 kids switch their colors, so they had 2 colors on their page. And then eventually they just started to become little artisans and coloring everything. We also brought a bunch of plastic instruments from the last trip, actually, that were donated that we brought this time. And so they had a little kids orchestra, and Kaz was teaching them how to play stuff. They had little flutes and harmonicas and tambourines and stuff like that. And so that was really cool to see. Another day we made bracelets with them as well. I wasn't able to make them. I'm not a good craftsman, but the kids loved it. One little kid almost had a little assembly line going, just making them off his desk and stuff. He really, really enjoyed that. As you can see, the kid on the right there, you can see how happy they were, and they just had the biggest smiles, and they had really, really nice teeth too. Maybe it's because they don't have sugar, I don't know, but they seemed really healthy and stuff like that, even if you know where they're coming from. And so there's the kids dancing and singing that crazy song I was telling you about. If anyone comes to the discussion after, I'll play some video from the dancing and singing. It was the highlight of my trip, probably, was getting the mosh pit of little children singing to their song. It was really fun. The connections we made and stuff right there. There's on my left is Jude, on my right is Can, and then there's Stanley, and there's Tijan. Those are 4 of my friends I hung out with a lot out there. They're all 12, 13, 14, and Can actually lives with the pastor, Charles, out there. His family died of disease in around 2003, so he was adopted. And so Paul's going to take over from our service.
So what do I have here? Service committee meeting. Okay, figure out what I'm supposed to be talking about here. So this is us on Sunday morning before we went into service. What was kind of cool is their service. I guess Methodist churches are the same wherever you go. I mean, there's a very similar format. They started off with some announcements and talking, just like us, crazy enough, and then upcoming things that were going on. This is the communion table. They had it covered with a cloth. You'll notice the Purell. They have gotten used to the fact that because cholera is existent and killed so many people, that even during communion, you had to hand sanitize before you took the bread or the drink. A couple of the girls dressed up. You can see them throughout the week, and their shoes are literally gaping open. Their feet are hanging out. Their clothes are tattered. You can tell they're hand-me-downs, things that have been donated. But when they showed up on Sunday, they were clean. Their clothes were pristine. They had nice shoes on. It gives a new meaning. And John, I think of you all the time because you tease me wearing shorts all the time. But they do show up to church on Sunday in their Sunday best, and it's important to them. This is me and the pastor. I think we're reading through the what's it called, what we read before communion, Pastor?
Great Thanksgiving.
Yeah, the Thanksgiving. It was a very similar. Now they had they had, okay, so I didn't get enough. They had a couple different hymnals. Some were in French, some were in Creole. They had different ones. So as we were singing in Creole, Well, we were trying to follow along with the words best we could and follow the tune. No instruments, by the way, just all sung. The singing was beautiful. And as we were singing, we tried to follow along in the books the best we can, but, it's the same songs. And some of the songs that they sung, I recognized the tune. Obviously, I didn't recognize the words because I'm just following along and trying to make up what I can follow along in Creole. But one of the songs we're going to sing later is a song that we sung in dinner, and we sung around the site on a regular basis, and we sung it in both Creole and English, and we actually got a sample. Now, the community meeting, when we got there, being the personality that I am, when I wasn't working, I was socializing. I was out doing everything I could to get to know the folks. And I established this kind of idea with John in the very beginning that, yes, we were there to learn about them, but it was just as important for us to let them learn about us. And we wanted to answer questions. I took my iPad, and I'd go sit down in the front yard with John and one of the interpreters and say, enough about us asking you questions. Ask us some questions. What do you want to know about me? What do you want to know about my family? What do you want to know about my church? Why I'm here? And that was a really huge part of why we as a team was so successful. And you're going to hear us talk about that more later. This community embraced us. They hadn't had anybody else. And we went in with such a loving spirit, and we were so anxious to get to know them and help them, but also to share our lives with them, that we had a community meeting. And during the community meeting, this is a party. I'm going to pause it here or go back a couple. We actually invited them to meet us on Tuesday night. We kind of had a round table. And the purpose of it was enough of us asking questions about you, because we were so curious to learn about the Haitian community and the culture. Ask us questions. And it started off kind of standoffish. They were kind of like not sure what to ask or where the boundaries were. But by the end of the conversation, we were comparing Obama to Clinton to Bush to Prop 8 issues and discussions about, it was amazing how their guard went down. And I think the fact that we embraced each other so much, and by Thursday night, they felt so indebted to us that they threw us a party. And we're going to share this in a minute, but that's unheard of. First of all, they don't typically have the means to throw a party. They strung electrical out so that we had one light bulb out on the foundation, the blank slab after we tore the church down, and we set chairs up. But this was James, one of our teammates, actually doing a Coke drinking contest. What it is, you had to pick a Coke up with just your mouth, tip it back, and drink it and chug it. And he was competing against one of the Haitian folks, and they beat him. And he had this technique where it was Yalele that he was racing against, and whoever drank this big 20-ounce bottle of Coke down the fastest. Yalele kind of laughed at him as he started, and so he went down and he did this swirl with his head, and he got the tornado look in the bottle, and it just went right down. And poor James was like, choking out, and, his teeth are getting all chipped off the glass jar, and Yalele just kind of spun it right down and laughed at him when he was, and he just smoked him. But James was like, absolutely, I know I'm going to beat him in this. I can chug a beer, I can at least chug a Coke or something, and it was hilarious. But this was at the party. They gave us bracelets, and Mason's wearing his. These bracelets cost like $5 to $7, for us to buy them. And the fact that they were able to pool their money, knowing that they're only making $8 a day, they bought us all these bracelets and they gave them to us, and they sang to us, and they were very happy to send something from them to us, and the fact that they would take just the time, and to them they felt like it was just a small amount of what they could give back to us for coming and helping them. And they sang and they did skits. Literally skits. It was just hilarious. It was like this whole kind of campfire atmosphere, but it was also a very spiritual and a very moving time, because the reality was we were leaving in the morning and they were going to miss us, and there was crying and tears. And I've got tons of photos where everybody wanted to be in a photo with us. And at that point, everybody wanted to be in a photo. So it was a very emotional evening, because we knew we were going to be leaving the community the next morning. But it's going to make it even more powerful if we get a chance to be able to go back and see them. So, this last photo, is just this last one, Mason? Is this? Okay. What this is when we left Levesque on Friday morning and we were on our way back to the guest house, they offered to take us by this memorial. This is the earthquake memorial. On January 10th, or January 12th, 2010 is when the earthquake hit, and you can see that date's embedded in that rock. This is a mass burial gravesite. As they explained it to us, they just dug a big hole, and they put about 300,000 bodies here, and then they buried it, and they covered it with this memorial. So this was kind of like that last little jerk your heart out and look at it on your way out of town. And, I have a different photo that I took, and just to the left of this is the ocean. And you can see up in the hills, and the reason Mason used this photo is there's multiple crosses there, and I don't know if you can see that in the photo. But all through the hillside here, there's just crosses everywhere. And this is the mountainside on the back. And we all got a chance to kind of stand there. And it's one of those weird things, where was God in that, or where do you feel God? But I'll tell you, when you're standing out there and it's quiet and the wind's blowing and you're standing on about 300,000 people that died in this earthquake and were buried here, it was pretty. It's one of those mixed feelings where you wanted to stand there and give your respects, but you wanted to get the heck out of there too, because it was just an interesting feeling. I really can't put words to it. So the last thing that I kind of wanted to share about, and I know that we're running tight on time and I don't want to take much more time, but when we got back to the guest house, we had a debriefing. And the purpose of the debriefing is for the Methodist church folks at the guest house who manage these job sites to say, how did it go? What would you do differently? What input can you have? And when we started sharing our experience, what I shared with you today, they were amazed. And, I'd like to invite John and Ann to maybe come up and talk about this part just for a second, because I know not all of you are going to be able to attend the next part in the potluck. But one of the things that the lady that was doing our debriefing is they typically don't throw parties. There are many teams that go in that didn't get a chance to integrate with the community like we did. They do their work. They go sit up in their area, or they kind of go away. And even when I talked with Lisa about it when I got back, there wasn't that after hours engaging. And there was some, but we literally on a daily basis had 50 or 100 people just hanging out, wanting to party. We were literally at 10 o'clock at night telling the kids, you got to go to bed. We have to go to bed. It was amazing. Do you guys want to add anything or share a little bit more about the debriefing that we had?
I think what I took away from it, different in this trip than others, is that we really were in and amongst the community that was there, and that our personalities mixed well with so many of the people, that we really found a way to connect on such a personal and vibrant way that it was like leaving family when we left. And why that happens to some teams, they have had over 300 teams in Haiti since the earthquake, and they know that there have been going aways, but never that I've heard of really an organized event in the evening on the last day to where the people came together and express their gratitude, and then more so to give a gift in return for the time that we spent there. And that really is unique, and that was something that is special. I told everybody on the team, even before the last night, that things had gone so well that we have really personally set a very high frame of reference for future mission trips, that it won't be like that again, but we can always hold that God really blessed us in this trip, and that we really had the privilege of bringing the love of our congregations to this community, to welcome them and embrace them, and then bring their love back to our communities. It was an amazing time. It really was.
Do you want to add anything, Ann?
Sure. I think something that was really incredible, like these pictures are really great. Mason did a great job editing, so they look really happy and bright, but some of the poverty might look really scary, and getting there, it's a really huge impact to arrive. There's a lot of new smells and sights and energy, but being there for a while, you kind of get past that, and you feel so much love and so much community there that you kind of see how they can get through with being in a welfare state. But they really pulled together and welcomed us so warmly and so beautifully that it feels so comfortable and so safe to be there. And it was something that it's incredible to see that but feel it as well, and I think it's an experience that many people should have.
Well, thanks, guys. So you guys can go sit down. I don't want to leave you up here standing in front of all these strangers. One thing to add to that, and then we're going to go right to the song, right, Pastor? So we sang, and we met three different times a day, and we had this most amazing cook, Madame Lulu. Lulu is not her name. Lulu is her husband's name, so Lulu is her last name. But she was a very spiritual woman, and just lots of God blessing, lots of just encouragement, spiritual encouragement. But we sang a lot, and she was a big, we're going to sing and we're going to pray and we're going to hold hands. And one of the songs that we sang several times, if not at least once a day, was Marching in the Light of God. And so when Alexis asked me, and we had video of some of us singing, and we're going to sing that song. So as I'm explaining it, I'd like you to watch or even follow along in the Faith We Sing book. The smaller hymnal on page 2235B is We Are Marching in the Light of God. But I want to let you experience what our version in Creole is, Marching in the Light of God, and English. And this is pretty much how the Spirit was engaging us on a daily basis in Haiti. Our dinner table. That's Madame Lulu singing. So now we're going to sing it. I wish we could do it in Creole first, but I can't remember it enough. I don't know, John, you want to lead it in Creole? No. But we're going to sing the same song. So please join me. We are marching in the light of God. Greg, if we can keep that same similar tempo, that'd be awesome. So